Welcome to New Game Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend Welcome to New Game Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name's Kenny.
8 p.m. Nolan.
And this is episode 288. Yet again, another Patreon pull!
Cannonballs!
It is the second Patreon pull of the summer pool party. We're just now getting started.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Diving right in.
This past week, Nintendo announced a new model of the Switch. This time with an OLED screen, a slightly larger screen, and, get this, an improved kickstand.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't OLED like an old advancement that we've made in technology?
It's not
Like,
that old.
Phones
It's still
have had
like
that a while.
Yeah, but it's still like the fanciest thing you can do on a screen.
I think they did, a year or two ago, they went to an improved OLED.
Yeah. So besides that, a kickstand is your selling point? A kickstand.
You don't...
There may be some people who really want the blackest blacks on their Switch screen.
Racist.
Don't judge them.
White Joy-Cons are cool. I like those. I like the look of that.
Still with the drift capabilities.
Yeah, they still do free repairs though if you send it
Yeah.
to them. But if it's not 60 FPS docked, that's embarrassing. That you're trying to sell a pro model for that price.
But it's not 60 FPS. It's not even 720p. We'll not even talk about 1080p. Don't bring 1440 up in this place.
No 4K?
Because we're still going 540. I'm pretty sure that's the max it can go.
I don't need it. I was hype at first because I was like, oh, OLED,
Yeah,
and then
it'd be nice to have a nicer screen, but if that's it and no greater ability, no upgrade to battery life, no like Bluetooth connectivity, Nintendo does not care about its user base.
No, they do what they want, and they make what they want, and they know that they're always going to be the weird third party at the dance that's off there to the side listening to their own headphones instead of the real music. And I don't know what I'm even trying to say with this analogy at this
I
point.
don't either.
But they do anything, and they don't care.
Well, sometimes their lawyer sends love letters to their fans, so
Right,
they do that.
true.
That's nice of them.
It's just they do not listen to their fan
No,
base.
they
Their
don't.
fan base has said, we would love these upgrades to the Switch. Hey, the Switch is a good console. Could we do these things? And they're like, you know what? No, we're going to do this
Kickstand.
instead. Kickstand.
But and if the goal is to make as much money, which it is for them,
Then that's what they're doing.
then that's what you do.
No. This is what, if you want money, this is what you do. You put out an upgraded Switch with a nicer screen and a little LAN port and a better kickstand. People buy that, and then you do the Switch Pro. And then people buy that too, because you don't care about anybody.
Dude, you're right though. That's sad, but you're right. They're gonna do something like that, and
They are.
that's not okay.
Absolutely. Within a year, we will have at least pro mode a new model of Switch. A new version.
If it's dock
with some of
60,
these-
I'll buy it. I'm
Nah.
skipping this one. Needless to say, I don't need OLED. I'll stick with my V1 until I die.
My Switch still works.
Okay.
Same.
Well, we're all sticking with our original Switches because, and we're just going to stay with that. And some Nintendo fans are going to continue to get mad. And at some point, Nintendo is going to push too far. They're going to push their audience to the max. The axle on their Nintendo vehicle will finally snap. Their wheels will fall off and they'll go out in a blaze of glory. They just cannot continue to skate by. Like in our retro game of the week, Streets of Rage 2.
Overview.
Streets of Rage 2 is a 1992 side-scrolling beat-em-up, the sequel to the 1991 Streets of Rage.
That's a quick turnaround. 1991 to 1992 and drop
Yeah.
a title that's relatively different.
It's about a year.
about.
Crazy.
But he's right. That is rare for the early 90s, I think. That's like
No,
modern games.
Rare
do that
wasn't
all the
involved. That's a different game.
time. He's already on one?
I mean, I think it because you say it's rare often, and so I think it. But then I'm like, you know what? That's not a funny joke, and I don't say it.
I'm gonna keep that one to myself.
It was developed by a team from Sega, Ancient, Shout Design Works, M&M Software, and HIC.
Can we just say Sega? Because I feel like
Sega.
I think it was
published. It was published exclusively by Sega, of course,
Right.
for the Sega Genesis and the Mega Drive, and I think I said, but it's a beat 'em up. So think like we played a few beat 'em ups before. We played Ninja Turtles. A few of those games have been beat 'em ups, and others.
And
what other
others.
beat 'em up games have we
I love
played?
how we all three do this, where we're like, we've played many of these on the podcast, like, and then you give an example, and then you're like,
one.
others.
POW is probably a beat 'em
Oh.
up, technically.
I forgot about that
Maybe, yeah.
weird game.
We do that reasonably so, Nolan. We've been going for 6 years almost, and
We're
300 games. So that's a lot. The plot is it really is a sequel to Streets of Rage, even in story. So 1 year after the conclusion of Streets of Rage, Mr. X and his criminal organization has returned. Now, Axel, the bodyguard, Blaze, the dance instructor, and 2 new characters, Max and Skate, must take to the streets to put a stop to Mr. X and his syndicate.
It's refreshing to have a Genesis exclusive on the podcast. It's been a minute. Number one. Number two, I love the Genesis. I had one growing up, and I didn't play Streets of Rage 2 on it. I played the first one, but I didn't own it.
What's interesting is that there's a lot of interesting things, but what's interesting is that this is not an arcade title. You would see it and maybe think arcade title.
Yes.
And I think they did an arcade version of it at a later time, but that's not how it started. Even Streets of Rage, both of those are Genesis Mega Drive exclusives.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's like them adapting a arcade genre for the home console just for that transition. Because this was, well, I don't know, 92 is late enough that arcade was not as relevant, but I always thought this was an arcade title. You're right.
Yeah. It's got the feel. They definitely went for the vibe.
All the beat 'em ups though have that feel, I think. Even fighting games, and
sure.
Though this is clearly like a beat 'em up, you're running around, brawling. It kind of has some fighting game elements in it. You're not just hitting single buttons, you're hitting some button combos. And so I definitely feel like they had some inspiration from sort of fighting game genre as well here.
Agreed.
And you're talking about like Street Fighter and Tekken and stuff like that.
Street Fighter 2 specifically, yeah.
Sure. Well, I think everybody's borrowing from Street Fighter 2 at that time.
Absolutely.
Street Fighter 2 Turbo, I mean, dude, just so successful. But we mentioned up at the front, but this is a Patreon poll. It was submitted by Pedro. If you missed out on the last Patreon poll, don't worry. We'll do another one, and then another one, and another one. This summer is a summer pool party exclusive. Tons of Patreon pools.
That last one, I think, was a lie.
What?
Another one, and another one, and another one.
Visit us at patreon.com/NGP podcast to find out how you can be a part or how you could replace Kenny as our third host of the New Game Plus
It's a new incentive.
New incentive. For enough money, I'd give up my spot.
Stop being friends with us.
Gameplay.
Okay, worth pointing out here that this game is 1 player or 2 player. Okay?
It's co-op.
It's co-op, baby. Now, again, that's very arcade style of gameplay. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and so when we think Turtles, we played on the podcast. I played that game with Dustin at his house, and so we had like the full experience. We also played Streets of Rage 2 co-op. Dustin, you beat it first single player before that, right?
I did.
Okay. The first time I played the game this week was when we played multiplayer. I'm just gonna say it up front. That's the way to play this game.
That colors
that's
the
the-
experience.
Absolutely. That's the way to play every game that gives you the option of it well, but especially this genre.
We're obviously going to have to bring this back up in age, but I think that is a reasonable conversation on these games anytime there is a couch co-op opportunity.
Yes. However, if you are playing this couch co-op game today, depending on how you're playing it, you can play it with someone online over the interwebs and do co-op even if you're not on the same couch.
Which is what we did. We got it on Steam. Which, by the way, buy the Sega collection on Steam. It's worth it.
So
it's
cool.
like $10, and you get a lot of cool games. And there's online multiplayer, and there's VR, so you can like be in a room, an old school '90s room with a TV, a CRT. That's great. First of all, anyways,
That's
I played
weird, and I turned that
Skate.
part off.
Skate was my main this week.
Okay.
I
Your
knew.
main
I
You
knew
knew,
it would
Kenny?
be. I knew.
I started with Axel, who was the protagonist from the previous game, but I evolved and I used Blaze the rest of the week.
Blaze is Bay, and Kenny, you played Max. I know you
Yes,
did.
he did.
No, I tried to, and I wanted to, but
Too slow.
and I wanted to play Skate too. He looked fun, but I was bad at him, and I wanted to play. I played a little bit of everybody for the flavor, but then when I did like longer playthrough, I wanted to do one of the main characters, and I settled on doing Blaze.
Okay.
I like the air game a little bit better than just the
Long
brawl
dancer's
game.
legs.
So you've got these 4 characters that each have varying stats and each play differently. Actually, very differently.
For sure.
So Max is your big Hulk. Think like Captain Hulk. And he is
Don't.
he's so big,
Don't
but
do
he's
that.
he's so slow, but he does the most damage. And he's got his own unique moveset.
Zangief.
You've got Axel. Zangief, okay, yeah,
Sure.
for Street
There
Fighter.
it is.
And then you've got Axel, who is kin. Not even just light kin, but he is kin.
Yes.
Like that. I mean, he's got blonde hair down his shoulders. He's got an uppercut.
Yeah.
And he's kind of right middle ground. And then you've got Blaze, who is a long-legged dancer girl, kind of like Cammy,
Maybe a Chun-Li.
And she does have a lot of air game like Kenny. Really just a lot of game in general, if you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Way more
No.
Chun-Li though, to answer your
And
question.
then
I guess.
Skate is a tiny boy that is on a not on a skate. He's on skates.
He's wearing rollerblades.
Rollerblades,
Yes.
and he moves very quickly, but he does the least amount of.
Yes.
Can I tell you, fighting in rollerblades is the worst idea.
Oh, well,
Like that's
not
not,
if I'm
a
behind
good
the controller.
idea.
Not for
Yeah, you would
Skate.
slip big time, dude. Okay, so that's the roster. We'll talk more about their special stuff. But here's the layout of the game. We've described it generally. You're going right, and the arrow, like when you're done killing things, an arrow points right. Or actually, you go down and up at times, but you're thrown. They throw enemies at you in waves, and it's like scripted in that sense, where you've got different enemy types. Like, I mean, they're all melee except for some aerial ones that we won't talk about at all. Worst enemy in the game, but some of them have weapons like pipes and knives and swords, which you can pick up and interact with. But all you're doing, whether you're playing single player or co-op, is clearing that wave of enemies and then progressing on until you get to a mini boss or a boss.
Yes, and that's it. 8 stages, each with 2 or 3 screens each around there. You start with, I think, on average, like 5 lives, which you can up or down a little bit, and then or 3 or 5 lives, and then you have a couple continues as well.
Yeah,
So-
3 is the default, but you can up
3,
it to
okay.
5 or lower it. There's also a number of difficulty settings that are toggleable, which on a game like this I think is super welcome, just because some people really want the challenge. Some people really want to just go like Hulk their way through everything and feel awesome. And so it's nice that there's options there.
I mean, while we bring that up, this game's hard.
I think it starts off really easy,
I agree.
and then it really ramps up very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah. And in co-op, I didn't beat it single player. I did get to like the 6th stage and I got a game over. So I don't know if co-op makes it worse. I think it's the same whether you're playing single player or multiplayer. They change it. Like they'll send more enemies your way, but it ramps up like way more than I thought it would. And it takes a while to like get good at the game. You have to really master your character, I feel like.
They give you the tools to do that, though. I feel like a lot of these games, there's frustration where, like, oh no, if you let an enemy stand behind you, it's automatically going to be this big problem. Or, you know, XYZ. You've got a really diverse set of skills to deal with all your circumstances. You can hit somebody that's actually standing behind you. There's a button for that. You can move out of the way. You can jump to dodge. You can attack in ways that are going to interrupt people. It takes a little while to learn all that, and it certainly takes a while to learn those buttons. And some like teaching that would be welcome, because again, the booklet is sort of assumed in this case, which is always annoying when you're playing it in the future. But they give you everything you need to handle it, which makes me feel like it's not as unfairly difficult, but it is difficult.
The interesting thing is, in my first play, so I didn't own a Game Gear growing. Nope, I didn't own a. I did have a Game Gear. I did not have a Sega Genesis growing up. I played at a friend's house, and I assumed, or I misspoke and said there's 6 buttons.
Yeah, there's 3.
There are on a future controller for the Sega Genesis, but there's only 3 buttons for the original A, B, and C. And so you've got those 3 buttons, no shoulder buttons, but full use of those, even with like double button presses, like a B and a C accomplish something. And so in this game, I was able in my first play to figure out most of it. I didn't fully know how I was like at first I thought that that Axel's like uppercut, the grand upper was the Hadouken, move, but it wasn't.
Quarter circle forward.
Quarter circle,
but
and then,
it's not.
And then hit. It's just right or left hit. But I was able to figure out most of that. I figured out that your special, you have one button that does your special, that if it makes contact or if you're holding a direction, it drains some of your energy. So I was able to discover a lot of that within the game. And so I think a lot of it is figure outable, but yes, I did pull up the manual and it has it explicitly laid out for you as well, which
it
is
looks
super
sick too. I just miss those so much.
They are nice and helpful.
I love, while we're talking about that, the inputs, I really liked the Genesis controller. I love how simple it is. I don't even think there's a select button on it, if I remember correctly. It's got a start and then ABC.
It is,
and
so
it was
simple.
Like chunky. I don't know. I really liked that configuration, but you're right. It's not like some of those fighting games like Street Fighter where you're just mashing and things are happening. You realize quickly that each character, like Kenny was saying, has like the same kind of moves, a behind hit, like a gap closer, but they're all different. Like Skates, the reason I love Skate so much is because his was a dash, like a skate. Like he would skate forward, and then when you hit the button, he like does this jump, this roll, and I used it all the time. But it's completely different for
his little backflip kick thing too was super sick.
Great. Love it.
And then you have grabs too. We didn't even mention grabs.
Yeah.
Like if you
how fun is it to grapple or to like jump over somebody's head?
Yeah.
Or in the case of Skates, to like jump over somebody's head and then jump behind them and like noogie punch him in the brain
get on
like
their
8
shoulders.
times. Oh, it was great.
We talked about Nolan and I being able to play co-op. It is friendly fire, but it's also friendly grab.
It's friendly grab, real friendly.
To be able to embrace each other in a game like that.
We would just hug each other from time to time. That's all.
Just hugging. So I was pretty amazed and pleasantly surprised at the expansive move set that each character had and how they operated. They felt very different from one another. And so it didn't just, a lot of beat 'em ups can feel walk to the right, smash B over and over. That's the game. And this, to me, did not feel that way because of these things that we talked about.
Yes.
Within my character, I still found that there was a little bit of repetitiousness. where it's like, okay, I'm kind of doing the same things that have been my go-to moves, and I'm doing it again, waves of guys. That's the genre. And so I certainly don't hate it. There's way more variety here and ways to deal with it than some, but I don't know that it's completely alleviated. I will point out, though, that we've said it, but this character diversity is so wildly different that it's almost like you get 4 different games worth of content.
Sure,
'Cause
I think
playing
so,
each
yeah.
one legitimately feels like a completely different playthrough.
Especially Max, like way slower than the rest, and but way stronger. And so, just I agree. I think you can play through this game multiple times, which is something you can't say about a lot of early '90s beat 'em ups.
You want to know what's interesting?
What?
That the character that they used for speedruns, or at least the speedrun that I watched, was Max.
Max, I did see that. I think Garlisle maybe posted that in Discord this week, and he was playing on like the hidden difficulty that was like super hard.
Which is even
I couldn't believe it was Max.
insane difficulty level. Yeah, but it's interesting because he's the slowest character, but he hits the hardest. So that's why they use him.
If you're getting that big damage, you may still be progressing quickly.
Another like mechanic specific to this genre that's usually frustrating to me is the plane system, where like your enemy is on one plane and you might be on another, and it looks like you're gonna punch them and you totally miss. That happens in this game.
Sure.
But I think they implemented that much better than other games. Even that TMNT game that we played, it felt more fair in this game, and I wasn't ever like, man, that was like I would totally hit you, or that was unfair. I thought it was done well.
The only time it threw me off was the air enemy,
dude,
because I could figure out where she was at any given time.
Jet or whatever. I mean, they have multiple names for them. That enemy is honestly broken.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. And then they throw one at you along with another boss later in the game. Okay.
It's so rude.
No.
It's so unfair.
It's a good length of a beat 'em up game.
Yes.
It's about 2 hours playing pretty consistently and well, and that's a good amount of time for the genre, I think.
Yes, your money's worth for sure.
It does feel a little long to me. Again, I feel like
you think too long?
But that's
a little
good
bit,
thing.
yeah. But plenty of diversity of bosses and levels. I just wish they'd cut some of the filler of those kind of like waves of enemies. Good. Still, they tried to mix it up. And so it's not like it's the worst thing in the world, but I wish it had been, I don't know, 10, 15% shorter.
You didn't like the pirate section?
I mean, pirates are great.
Aged.
I think it has the perfect visual appeal for a beat 'em up.
I'm going to agree, and I'm going to say what's even more impressive isn't the visuals are great. The visuals as an evolution from where the first game was is even more impressive, because Streets of Rage 1 was successful.
Yes.
And looks wildly different. It's the smaller sprites. It's not as bright and colorful. Sure, trends in games may have been moving, and this like bigger, brighter, cartoonier, arcadier look may have been the thing, but they didn't have to do that. And the fact that they did and did it so well is 100% worth noting.
Y'all are saying great. I'm saying this looks best on the console. This might be my favorite graphical choice that Sega has ever put out. Seriously. It's
really
detailed.
well done.
It is vibrant. It's like it sets the tone of the game in a way, like it just fits with the theme of it, like street toughs and back alley.
Foreground and background.
Background. It's so
unique
so good.
Settings. And like
so many
details in each of those settings.
Varied environments, from a CD club to a baseball stadium to a jungle to like some haunted forest, I think. But like
best on
so
console.
many varied environments, and then so many variety of enemies. I mean, there's not an overwhelming different kinds.
Yeah.
But there's even like slightly different behaving ones within the same kind of person.
Yes.
Well, and you say there's not an overwhelming set of kinds. There's not. It's not like a huge cast, but the fun that they had with their cast and the character design, not just of your main four, but of the enemies too, is so great.
The names.
They went with all different like archetypes of fighters. You've got wrestlers, you've got like
Samurais.
You got
brawlers,
boxers, samurai, brawlers,
boxers, kickboxers, you got
punk
sort of ninja
girls.
style. Yeah, you got all the like
Bikers?
street folks, bike, everything, like all the genres of the
Dominatrix.
kinds of people that might get into a fight in the streets. They threw in there. It was fun.
And we mentioned it previously, but with the weapons that you get to use, it looks good. They put so much detail in the visuals, in how that's connected to the actual gameplay, with all of the environments, with all of that, because like, we said bikers, but like some of them come on bikes, and some of them, it's all sorts of things like that. And then musically, they have a soundtrack that they don't just phone in. That's not just like, hey, here's a few bars, but that matches each and every varied environment that you go into.
Again, one of the best on the console. I won't say best because Sonic and many others, but goodness, the first track, I was like, let's go. I was ready to play Dustin. Like that got me in the zone. And then that jazzy one in the bar. What?
You literally, like, on the original hardware, not like doing a remake of these songs, you could take this game's music, plug it into a speaker system at a nightclub, and just let it play randomly. People wouldn't be confused. They would just dance and get it. Dude. And yet it also fits perfectly with the game. Like, it's so good.
High quality.
And so the tracks aren't too short. Because if they would be repetitive, and and it's like a soundtrack that you could actually listen to, that could be on one of our soundtracks from the videos that we make and just celebrated just recently. We should make a Genesis one, because there's some probably really good Sega Genesis tracks out there.
Yeah,
but I mean,
half of it would be this game, though.
I know, that's fine.
I know that various people, when it came out, talked about how revolutionary and ahead of its time it was, because, like techno, house, electronic, like it goes through a few varieties of dance music, and just really keeps you in there, and then makes you feel like you're beating them up, which is the genre itself. I do think that it is sad when we can't easily do 2-player co-op.
Agreed.
But no, it is, Kenny. You don't have to do this, because when there are games, when there are games that do have a 2-player co-op option, we've always brought up, wow, I wish we could have played with one another. And oftentimes today, if you're not virtually sitting on the same couch together, you're unable to do so. And that is sad to me. And so it's important to bring up. We already mentioned that we were able to this week.
Yeah.
And there's an easy way to do it.
Seamless.
And we had zero problems with it. And you know what else on top of that? Nolan had to go to bed one night, and so we weren't allowed to finish it in time.
Mm-hmm.
So we saved it and picked right back up where we were.
Amazing. And I know
Crazy.
I have been a critic of VR. Y'all know this for a long time.
Come back to this.
Listen to me.
Don't try and get me to sit on that stupid VR couch. I turned that business off.
Listen to me. Retro. The developers of that collection on Steam are so smart, because in VR you can go back in time and sit in a room, which is super cool to me.
Nolan's
the room
stuck
has
on this, and it has nothing to do with the game.
It's got posters on the wall. It's got the CRT with static.
It's got small crickets and outdoor noise.
Crickets outside at nighttime, dude. It's so
It's got
sick.
a little toggle button you can click to go to the simplified menu.
Yes.
And that's what everybody else does, because nobody wants
so
to sit
it gets
in
a
that
20 out of
nonsense
10 for playability in 2021.
Okay.
It's so good.
Okay.
He doesn't even care about the game. He just cares about the packaging.
My point is that The game was fun on its own for me, but being able to play with Nolan takes it to a whole nother level because we're
course.
able to, hey, you get that guy and I'll get this guy. Or I'll toss this guy to you and you get him. Or, hey, your health is low. Survive and I'll try to take it for now. That adds a whole, what, Kenny? A 3 or 4 or 5 times multiplier on the fun that you can have by
Yes.
yourself.
Certainly, you're not going to get that with some games and some publishers. So part of that is Sega's willingness to do this.
Thank you.
But also part of that is this game's popularity. If you're popular enough, you're going to be the game that gets the support of a re-release, of all the tools to still
Right.
play it, of your little VR dream coming true so you can sit together in a couch or whatever. And so I just think it's also worth kind of pointing out this game's like overt legacy as well while we're talking about age. This game was highly awarded when it came out. It was well reviewed initially and retrospectively. It was commercially successful. It was re-released on a bunch of stuff. It makes pretty much all the lists of best game ever lists. It's hard to really find anything wrong with this game to talk about, honestly.
Yeah.
I accidentally said Game Gear earlier, but it did receive a Game Gear port in 1993 that looks awful, but it got a very good looking 3DS redesign in 2015.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
the game used, and I did look it up, is $30, and brand new, it is $154.
Okay, I'd pay it.
So you could get a used copy pretty easily if you had a Sega Genesis sitting at your home. Then we could play couch co-op by sitting in the couch together instead of doing it VR.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. I'll begin. I haven't begun in a while. I think it's already clear to you, our audience, that I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I beat it on my own with save states my first time through with Axel. And then I went through with Blaze, and with what the game gave me, 3 lives and a couple continues, was able to get to the final stage. I did not make it to the final boss. It really ramps up a whole lot there, especially on that elevator climb to the final. And so I died there, but that was successful for me getting that far. And I felt like I got a lot more control this week. But then, like we've already gone on and on, being able to play with Nolan this week, it's just, it's a whole different experience. And, we even looked afterwards on, I Google searched and I said, best co-op games on the Genesis to play together, since we had that VR room and we could do it. The number one game there, Kenny, Streets of Rage 2. We had already done it. We had already done it. And so I think this game is probably top 3. I can easily say top 3 beat 'em ups on any console. And I certainly enjoyed it, if not loved it, and definitely give it my vote for New Game Plus status.
So for me, this game had a few really big hills to climb. We've been doing a pool party, and so the quality of games has been high, which means the bar for me being impressed is probably a little higher than it sometimes is. It's in a genre I don't particularly care for. Brawler beat-em-ups is not my thing, and especially ones that lean into kind of fighting game style as heavily as this one does, because I like those even less, probably. It also came in with a super high reputation, like as being this great game, and sometimes if you're, like shooting for the stars, if you don't hit that, like you're gonna be disappointed, and so that was tough. On top of that, I was just sort of in a bad mood this week, which sometimes is not great for my opinions of games. Like, there were a whole lot of things making it seem like I was going to have a hard time giving this a fair opinion.
Real quick, you were in a bad mood this week?
Yeah.
It usually lasts a week for you?
Oh, like months sometimes.
Okay. Go ahead.
But despite all of that, this is such a masterfully crafted classic that I have to, with no hesitation, give it New Game Plus status, even though it's not my go-to cup of tea. Game type style wise, almost perfect in what it is.
In its implementation. All right, so that's
For
2.
sure.
Nolan, what do you have to say?
I said last week that I didn't care for the first one, and I don't generally like side-scrolling beat 'em ups. It just doesn't appeal to me that much. I get pretty bored. This game is something unique. Like within the genre, it does something that is so addicting and fun. It's just iconic. This game rules. I had so much fun playing multiplayer. Single player is good. Multiplayer is amazing. I think this is one of the best Genesis games. You said top 3 beat 'em ups. I think it's the best beat 'em up. I can't believe I missed out.
I love that playing the game channeled your inner 90s kid to say that this game rules. This game
rules
rules
and other games drool. Seriously.
Other games drool. I love the Genesis, and I'm so upset that I didn't grow up playing this game. I would have loved this game. Of course it gets New Game Plus. It's a must
You'd have been
play.
a better person if this was part of your childhood.
I would have been in a better mood this week.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
So that, of course, means that Streets of Rage 2 is New Game Plus certified. But what did you think? We had many people write in. Before we get to those, 397 votes came in on YouTube. 70% said yes, it's worth playing today. Only 8% said no, go play something else. And 22% have never played it before.
8% is wrong.
8% wrong.
That's a big percentage of yeses, though.
Yeah,
and I would encourage
huge.
the 22% to go play this game. You can play it very easily today. Listen, many people wrote in. I always want to try to include first-time writers, first-time people writing in, because, but there were so many first-time submitters this time that I'm not going to even be able to include all of them. So please don't get disheartened. Write in again for a future game. I always try to prioritize those. One of those is Mig. Said, I'd like to offer a slightly different take on why this game gets the love that it gets through the lens of my childhood and even adult experiences. If you were unlucky enough to sink quarter after quarter into an early Capcom arcade cabinet, you'll quickly realize how unfair those games were, but more importantly, how mundane the music was for most of the early beat-em-ups. Playing them today has only made it clear that these games didn't need great music, as most other kids weren't rich enough to even afford the endless continues to see the later levels. But Streets of Rage 2 and 3, on the other hand, provides funk, jazz, tropical, and electronic sounds that drive you forward while you button mash your way through Mr. X's minions. It is my opinion that while the gameplay is fun, this franchise wouldn't be held in such high regards if it wasn't for the fantastic soundtrack provided by Yuzo Koshiro and Motohiro Kawashimi. It's not only one of the best console beat-em-up franchises, but its music is still regarded as some of the best of its time.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, I love soundtracks already, but this one just made me want to fight somebody. It was so upbeat and sick. I agree.
Yeah, the amount of time.
I'm not going to listen to good music around Nolan.
J-Top said, I'm pretty new to this podcast, so this is the first title I actually participated in playing.
Welcome.
Nostalgia for days with this game. I have fond memories of playing this game with my cousin. He would always pick Axel, and I would always pick Skate. Nothing quite like jumping on a bad guy's shoulders and punching him repeatedly while wearing rollerblades. Great soundtrack, great stages, and great graphics. This is a title that I rented so much I could have easily bought the game with all the money I spent on it. Easily NGP for me.
Ooh, renter for sure.
What? You rented tons of games.
I know. I'm saying this would have been on the list if I would have known.
Oh, yeah. Nowell said, first, I love Sega Genesis. It is my second favorite console out of the retro ones. However, it was difficult for me to pick up this game. I think it may be related to me not being super fond of the beat-em-up games and having great memories of the ones I played when I was a kid, like Golden Axe 3. With that said, once I got to stage 3, I was feeling more comfortable playing it. It felt really easy for being an arcade game until it turned into, an arcade game idea turned into a home console game. For the first 3 or 4 stages, I didn't die once. And then the difficulty ramps up a lot. I think Axel is overpowered for his uppercut. I didn't like that most of the enemies are repeated, especially the mini bosses. I think this game does deserve NGP. Plus, I feel like even if it has some things I didn't like much, it's still a great game and great fun. P.S.
Yep.
Why did they change the name for the US release? Bare Knuckles is too good.
The Requiem of the Deadly Battle, though?
Yeah. No, that's
much.
so epic.
That's
A little
That's so,
much.
like, Japan epic over the top. I love it.
Finally, Super Gamer Guy said, I couldn't have been more excited when Streets of Rage 2 was picked this week. This game is easily one of my favorite beat-em-ups, and for good reason. The graphics are still pretty good with the flashy 90s visual style, and the music is fantastic. Go Straight and Dreamer are still some of my favorite Genesis tracks to this day. But the real star of the show is the gameplay. Refined, smooth beat-em-up combat that never fails to deliver on a good time. Each character has a distinct and varied moveset that allows the player to effectively counter enemies and boss attacks. This makes for a tough yet rewarding experience the whole way through. Streets of Rage 2 is a must-play for any retro gamer, and it deserves NGP status all the way.
Are you going to read my commentary that I put in that says I forgot to talk about it during the actual episode, but the sound effects are so satisfying here that punches and thwacks and weapon things just feel like you're in the moment. Oh,
Yeah, they fit for sure.
And there's tons of them, man.
I know.
There's actually
Yup.
there's a sound test for the music, of course, but also for the voice and the voice words, the voice things, and the sound effects. Two separate. They have two separate categories because there's so many of each.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Guys, thank you for sending in your thoughts on the Retro Game of the Week. You can do that each and every week to ngppodcast@gmail.com or drop in our Discord. We've got a commentary channel there. We'd love to include your thoughts as a part of next week's episode. For now, we're going to set aside Streets of Rage 2 and randomly select from our poll on this third poll party. We've got tons of Super Metroid from people like Amarlian and the Whiskey Dictionary. That's Bill. We've got Mega Man X2 and Resident Evil 2 from Michael. We've got Dino Crisis for the PlayStation from Ramiel. We've got, let's see here, Beautiful Joe and the Secret of Monkey Island from Cecil. Let's get one other good one in here. Hey, from Bradley, our good friend Bradley, 2 entries for Fire Emblem for the GBA.
Oh, man. So good. I'm nervous. I don't know what this is going to be. If it's Super Metroid, guys, I'm going to run out of this room.
Is it going to be hype?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, we are randomizing now. We're going to be playing a game that was submitted by 4 different people for a total of 6 entries.
Okay.
It was published by Sega.
Okay.
It was developed by Smilebit. Are you familiar?
I just no.
It's a 2000 action game for the Dreamcast.
Okay.
Dreamcast. All right, bring it on.
It has been in the Patreon pool many times before. It has never been selected. You play this game controlling a member of a youth gang that uses inline skates to traverse Tokyo, spraying graffiti and evading authorities.
Super
So
Metroid.
like Streets of Rage?
The game is called Jet Set Radio.
Was this Shauna?
All right, so it was submitted by the following 4 individuals. Shauna, yes. Indar, Francesca, and Corey.
Jet Set Radio.
Jet Set Radio.
Not to be confused with Jet Force Gemini.
And not to be confused with AM Radio.
Yep. I have... the way you describe this game sounds ridiculous. I have no idea what this game is.
Okay, listen. I don't either, but a Patreon pool that 4 people submitted, there's going to be something here.
Sega?
I am a little bit familiar with this game.
Oh.
And so Nolan, make sure this week you don't get it confused with a jet.
Oh, like
an actual jet.
Okay.
Or FM radio.
Okay, I'll keep those things in mind.
Oh my gosh. Grab a copy of Jet Set Radio and play it along with us this week.
Join us in Discord. We now have a welcome channel, so when you join, you're bombarded with our community welcoming you, and it's a great time to do it. Pool parties are hype, and you have opinions and thoughts on games, and we want to hear them. You can do that in the commentary channel. Join the Discord by going to ngppodcast.com and clicking Join Us in Discord.
I want to say a big thank you to our growing list of wonderful producers, who include Anthony, Amarlian, Austin, Ben, Bethany Fox, Carrie, Dan the Man, Francesca, Hi, I'm Josh, Corey, Maxima, Nawel, Secret Duck of Evermore, Shauna, Thomas, Unbedavable, Wardonis, William, and Zion. We appreciate you guys. You just go above and beyond. Doubly huge, extra big thank you to our director level supporters, Antonin, Garlisle, Brojim, and Jordan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And we also want to say thank you to some new producers, Joey, Brunk, I'm going to pronounce that name wrong, and to some new patrons who've joined. Thanks to Nawel for upgrading his support, to Robert for joining us as a patron, and for Retro Gaming Dev for joining us as a new patron as well. You guys got to stop because I have so many names to say. It's making the show real long. Thanks so much.
And thank you to Ionic, who just subscribed on YouTube, and I have alerts on the video. Thank you.
Man, we are so pro. Kenny, your camera hasn't been on this whole time.
Wait, no,
we are making references to our live stream, which a lot of you were there for, because we just surpassed 10K subscribers on our YouTube. A video of ours hit 1 million views.
Crazy.
Like, a lot of really good things happening in the NGP community recently.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your support. You can follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. This episode was edited and produced by our good friend Tom Tate. Join us next week as we play Jet Set Radio. Until then, I'm still Dustin.
I'm still right about sequels.
I'm Nolan.
And this has been New Game Plus.